Every Monday, without fail, I wired $5,000 to my parents, my silent proof of love they never asked for. It was an unspoken ritual. Before my first sip of coffee, before checking the news or even brushing my teeth, I'd log into my banking app, tap the familiar transfer button, and send away what I couldn't afford to keep. They never asked for confirmation. They didn't need to. The money always arrived, on time, consistent, like I was paying rent for a spot in their affection. The morning was quiet, the kind of stillness that usually calms you, but that day it settled on my shoulders like dust. I sat on the edge of my bed, legs dangling above the cold floor, watching the zeros disappear into their account. It hurt, but not the way people imagine. It wasn't a sharp sting. It was slow erosion, a silent undoing of self. They never said thank you, not once. What I got instead were reminders of how lucky I was to have a sister like Sabrina. "She's brilliant, you know," my mother said over Sunday dinner the week before. "She chose well. Her husband takes such good care of her. That's what smart women do." The roast was dry, and my mouth even drier. I looked down at my chipped plate while she spoke, nodding as if I agreed, as if my stomach didn't turn at every word. I lived in a small apartment, clean, functional, but bare. I hadn't bought new clothes in months. My laptop was 7 years old, but I told myself this was okay. Family mattered. Sacrifice was love. I had repeated those words so many times, I wasn't sure I believed them anymore. Late one night, my phone buzzed. Mom lit up on the screen. I answered immediately, heart thumping with an automatic dread. "Sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling, "we're in trouble. Your father's prescriptions. He ran out. We can't afford them this month." I didn't ask questions. I didn't hesitate. I just said, "I'll send it." And I did, $300 this time. The same hour. I skipped groceries for the week, opened another credit card. That was Thursday. On Sunday, I took the train home for dinner, as usual. I brought a store-brand pie, the only thing I could afford that wouldn't show up my sister. The moment I walked in, the house smelled of rosemary and wine, polished wood, and expensive candles. My mother greeted me like a guest. Sabrina was already there, of course. She sat perched on the edge of the couch, legs crossed, sipping white wine from a stemmed glass, wearing a cream dress that screamed quiet wealth. Her nails sparkled when she waved at me. "Hey," she said, like we hadn't grown up in the same room. Dinner was uneventful, as it always was. My father talked about the lawn. My mother talked about Sabrina's latest gala. I nodded, smiled, pretended I didn't notice they hadn't asked about my job in over 6 months. The train ride back was slow. Rain clung to the window. I mindlessly scrolled through Instagram, just needing to escape the silence. That's when it hit me. A new post, Sabrina, my parents, a yacht, the caption, sun, sea, and family time. Nothing better. I stared. There they were. My father in shorts, holding a champagne flute. My mother in oversized sunglasses. Sabrina in a swimsuit that probably cost more than my rent. They were laughing. The timestamp? Friday. The day after I sent money for medicine. I didn't move for a long time. The train rocked gently, metal humming beneath my feet. I kept looking at that photo. Zoomed in. My mother's smile, my father's tan lines, Sabrina's diamond earrings. All of it screamed joy. Joy bought with lies. They told me they were sick. They told me they were broke. They told me they needed me. That night, I stopped being their daughter. I became their ATM's final transaction. They lied to my face, and I smiled back like I didn't know. I watched them raise their champagne glasses on a yacht the same week they cried poverty to me, and still I sat there across the dinner table, pretending not to know. I had smiled, nodded, passed the gravy. What else could I do? Rage would have broken me, and I needed to stay whole for what was coming next. By the time October settled over the neighborhood like a worn-out sweater, I had stopped feeling anything at all. No anger, no sadness, just a simmering clarity that came from seeing too much and staying silent for too long. So I decided to do what I'd never done before, collect, not feelings, evidence. The breeze was mild that afternoon, the kind that made leaves shiver like secrets. I walked across the quiet street to Mr. Halden's house. He was out in his yard, pruning hedges that didn't need pruning, like always. "Afternoon, Rachel," he said without looking up, shears snipping rhythmically. "Hi, Mr. Halden. Just checking in. Have my parents been around?" He looked up, surprised. "Oh, they just got back yesterday, didn't they?" I tilted my head. "Back from where?" He smiled. "Florida. They were gone for about a week. Sabrina was with them. Asked me to feed their fish while they were out. Said it was a last-minute thing. Surprise family getaway." Fish. Right. The same week, Mom cried about medicine bills. The same Friday, Sabrina posted their oceanfront toast to family. It all lined up. Too well. "Thanks," I said, voice tight. "Appreciate it." Back at my apartment, the walls seemed to lean in closer, like they too had been listening. I pulled my laptop onto the kitchen counter, opened my bank app, and stared at the endless list of transfers. Mondays, Fridays, holidays, emergencies, rent, tuition, medical. I'd labeled every one of them with reasons they gave. I just hadn't realized until now. Those reasons were stories. Some real, maybe. Most? Theater. I grabbed a pen. Jade, who had just stepped in from work, set her bag down and walked over. "You okay?" she asked, brushing my shoulder. I didn't look up. "I want to track it, all of it." "Track what?" "Every transfer, every excuse, every message." Jade paused, then gave a small nod. "Let's treat it like a case file." We printed the last 12 months of transactions. I laid out Post-it notes on the wall above my desk, one for each week. Week 1. Your father lost his job. Week 7. We might lose the house. Week 16. Emergency meds. Underneath each sticky note, I taped the matching transfer. And next to it, whatever they were doing that week, courtesy of Instagram, Facebook, or Halden's offhand remarks. Week 16, for instance, I had sent $300 for medication. Sabrina posted a story from a hot stone massage suite. Spa robes, champagne, the caption, "Self-Care Sunday with the best parents in the world." I labeled it in red pen, "Emergency meds equals spa trip." Jade stepped beside me, crossing her arms. "This is more than manipulation." I didn't answer. My printer whirred as I spat out a string of old emails. I scanned through my archives, desperate for something that felt like truth or proof. What I found was worse. One thread was between Sabrina and my mom. The subject line, "Weekend idea. Let's surprise Dad." But the body? "Don't worry, I'll get Rachel to fund it again. Same as last time. She always says yes. Girl can't say no if her guilt is louder than her brain." My hand froze on the page. "Jesus," Jade whispered. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until the edges of the paper began to curl under my fingertips. The worst part wasn't even the manipulation. It was the tone. Like I wasn't a person, just an inexhaustible resource they mined, with fake tears and old memories. I printed the email and stuck it on the wall. Week 22. Planning family weekend, Rachel to fund. Jade began adding sticky notes of her own now, writing legal terms under each date. Undue influence, coercion, verbal misrepresentation. "Technically," she muttered as she moved from note to note, "this borders on fraud." I stepped back, arms crossed, looking at the wall like it was a crime scene. In a way, it was. A year of manipulation, mapped out in color, in print, in undeniable receipts. They hadn't left me with questions. They left me with evidence. I wasn't done giving. I was about to give them something they'd never forget. They thought it was dinner. I served them truth. I set the table with care: salmon, roasted potatoes, a simple arugula salad, and a bottle of wine I couldn't quite afford. The apartment was spotless, every surface wiped clean, every light adjusted for just the right level of warmth. But the warmth was a lie. I didn't want comfort. I wanted clarity. The last time I invited them over, they told me they were too sick. "Flu's going around," Mom had said. "Wouldn't want you to catch anything, sweetheart." That night, I watched the sunset behind them on Instagram. 3 silhouettes on the deck of a yacht, Sabrina's caption sparkling under a photo bathed in gold. "Perfect night with the best family." Now they stood in my doorway, smiling as if we hadn't lived two different truths. Dad's tie was crooked, Mom wore pearls, and Sabrina walked in 20 minutes late, her perfume preceding her, her heels clicking like punctuation on a sentence that didn't care how it ended. "Smells good in here," Mom said, peeking into the kitchen. I smiled, motioned toward the table. "Just something light." Dinner began with awkward chatter. I asked about their week. They answered vaguely, then turned the spotlight toward Sabrina's latest party invitation. I poured the wine and let them talk, let them spin the same yarn of normalcy they'd always wrapped around me. But I didn't rap back. I didn't fill the silence. I just listened. Halfway through the meal, I stood up and retrieved a plain white envelope from the bookshelf. It wasn't thick, but it was heavy with intent. I walked back, placed it in the center of the table between the breadbasket and the half-empty wine glasses. "What's this?" Dad asked, reaching for it. I sat down. "Open it." He did. Mom leaned over. Sabrina rolled her eyes. Inside were printed screenshots, color-coded spreadsheets, email chains, Instagram posts, each stapled and labeled. Week by week, transaction by transaction. Lies paired with receipts. Smiles paired with sobs. What is all this?" Mom whispered. "Records," I said. "Of everything. Every dollar, every excuse. Every time you said you were struggling while sipping champagne." Dad's mouth opened, closed. "Rachel, this is ridiculous. We needed a break. We never asked for you to—" "You cried on the phone," I cut in. "Said you couldn't afford medicine. 2 days later you were on a yacht." Sabrina scoffed. "God, Rachel, you're still hung up on that? It's called living. Maybe try it." I turned to her. "I've been living, just not the life you flaunt. Mine came with ramen dinners and overdue bills while you played princess on my dime." "Oh, come on," she laughed, tossing her hair back. "You're just jealous. Get over it." I reached for my phone, calm, deliberate. On the screen, I opened my banking app, tapped into the auto transfer section, held it up so they all could see. 3 recurring payments, each labeled Carter Household. I hit cancel, one by one. "Rachel," Mom said, her voice cracking. "Don't—" Too late. Their panic was instant. Dad sat forward. "You're overreacting. We've supported you your whole life." "No." My voice didn't rise, but it landed harder. "You used me, and I let you. That ends tonight." Sabrina leaned back, lips curled. "Fine. Be dramatic. Don't think you won't come crawling back one day." I stood up. My hands weren't shaking. Not anymore. "Ask Sabrina for money now. I'm out." They didn't come to apologize. They came to bargain, like customers demanding a refund for love they never earned. I knew they'd come. I knew the moment I clicked cancel on those transfers, something would shift. Power doesn't like to be taken away, especially from those who never earned it. It was late, long after the streets outside had gone quiet. The air in my apartment had that stillness before a storm. No dinner this time, no wine glasses, just a stack of files on the same table where I had once offered them grace. Tonight, there would be no illusions. The knock was sharp, 3 times. I opened the door without surprise. They all stood there. My father in a pressed shirt that still reeked of authority. My mother holding her purse tight against her chest like a shield. And Sabrina, smug as ever, arms crossed, eyes glittering with defiance. "We need to talk," my father said. I stepped aside wordlessly, let them in. They moved like they owned the space. Sabrina was the first to speak. "Nice place," she said with a smirk, scanning the room. "Still small, though. You should really let Mom and Dad help you manage better." I sat down. Didn't offer seats. Didn't offer smiles. Jade stood quietly in the corner, watching, calm, composed. She didn't need to speak. She was the anchor in this room full of whirlpools. My mother cleared her throat. "Rachel, sweetheart, we're worried about you." I tilted my head. "Really?" "Yes," she said, inching closer. "You've been distant, cold. We know you're going through something and we just want to help." My father added, "Let's not pretend this is normal. Cutting off your own family? That's not you." "You don't get to define me," I said flatly. Sabrina rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. You need us more than we need you. I smiled, just slightly. Do I? My hand reached for the folder resting neatly at the center of the table. I slid it forward, the cover clear and deliberate. Fraud and manipulation, internal. Their eyes flicked to the words. My mother's hand twitched. What is this? She asked, voice thinner now. Documentation, I replied. Of every lie, every request, every post, every emergency. Sabrina snorted. What, you've been spying on us? No, I said, opening the folder. I've been listening. I pulled out the first page, an email, printed, highlighted. Sabrina's voice faltered when I read aloud. Don't worry, I'll get Rachel to fund it again. Same as last time. She always says yes. Girl can't say no if her guilt is louder than her brain. Silence. A thick, choking silence. I kept going. Text threads, photos, date stamp transfers, side by side with Instagram posts from vacations, spa weekends, shopping sprees. And here, I said, tapping a final document, is a voice recording. Of you, Mom, telling Dad to act more stressed next time we talk, because, quote, she loosens up when she hears Dad sound sad. My mother's face drained of color. You recorded us? My father asked, voice low. Legally, Jade interjected for the first time, in a single-party consent state, and if you're considering escalation, I'm prepared to file for a restraining order for emotional coercion and financial abuse. They turned to her. Sabrina's jaw clenched. You brought a lawyer? No, I said, standing slowly. I brought someone who gives a damn about me, unlike you. My mother stepped forward, pleading. We didn't mean... Stop, I said. You didn't mean to get caught. Sabrina scoffed, stepping back toward the door. You think you're so powerful now, because of some stupid files? No, I said, walking with her, because I finally stopped begging to be seen. She shook her head. You'll regret this. I opened the door for her. You came here to win me back. You just proved why I was right to leave. She was golden until she stopped paying. There was a time when Sabrina's name lit up every room. At every dinner, every gathering, our parents would beam when they spoke of her. Our Sabrina, they'd say, as if just saying her name made the air sweeter. She had the glow of someone always chosen, always praised, but glows fade, especially when the power source cuts out. It was a rainy Saturday when Mr. Holden called me over. I was standing at my window, watching drops streak the glass, when the phone buzzed. You might want to hear this, he said in his usual gravel voice. Been a rough night across the street. I met him on his porch, umbrella in one hand, coffee in the other. The scent of wet soil and rose bushes clung to the morning. They've been screaming since last night, he said, nodding toward my parents' house. Your sister mostly. Said she won't give them a dime. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Your father yelled something about betrayal. Your mom was crying. Sabrina slammed the door around 3, I think. Then... silence. I didn't say anything, just stared at the house where I once believed love lived. He chuckled softly. Funny, isn't it? They had 2 daughters, played favorites with one. Now neither will answer their calls. I left with a quiet thank you and walked back in the drizzle, the gray sky mirroring something still inside me. Later that evening, I curled into the couch with a blanket, my laptop open to work emails I couldn't focus on. The apartment felt stiller than usual, peaceful in the kind of way silence only becomes when you've fought for it. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message, you ruined everything. No name, just those 3 words, but I knew who it was. Her writing style had always been unmistakable, clipped, dramatic, lacking punctuation like she didn't believe in rules. I stared at the screen. Then, slowly, I pressed and held. The text dissolved with a soft ding as I hit delete. Somewhere out there, Sabrina was in an empty apartment, no longer draped in designer labels, no longer cushioned by praise or privilege. Her husband had kicked her out, a fact I knew from whispers in town and a mutual friend who worked at a law office. The man she had married for wealth had cut the cord the moment she stopped being useful, and when she turned to our parents for help, they did what they'd done to me. begged. But Sabrina didn't do charity. The second buzz came not long after sunset. A voicemail. I listened. It was Mom, her voice shaky, high-pitched, soaked in tears. "Rachel, it's your mother. Please, sweetheart, we don't know what to do. Sabrina's gone. She yelled at us, said she's done. She won't answer. Your father, he's not well. We have no one. Please, just call back. Please?" Her voice cracked. The message ended with silence, but I imagined the sobs that followed, the same ones that used to shatter me. I stared at the wall. It was bare now. I had taken down the Post-its, the spreadsheets, the emails. I didn't need them anymore, not because I forgave, but because I had nothing left to prove. The apartment was still. A single plate sat in the sink. Rain tapped softly on the window, and for the first time, their silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. It took 3 years, one broken bond, and a quiet knock to feel like the door had really closed. Winter in our town was never harsh, but that day the air felt heavier. Maybe it was the snow, light but persistent, coating the sidewalk like ash. Maybe it was the way the cold clung to my coat as I stood in front of the house I used to call home. It looked smaller now. Or maybe I had simply grown. I stood there a moment longer than necessary, unsure if I was ready. But closure doesn't wait for comfort. It waits for courage. The door creaked open before I knocked. My mother stood in the threshold, blinking like she'd seen a ghost. Her hair had more gray now, pulled back in a way that looked less polished, more tired. Her eyes widened, filled with something that looked like disbelief, then shattered into tears. "Rachel," she breathed, "you're here. You're really here." She stepped forward, and for a second I didn't move. Then her arms were around me, and I felt her shaking. Her sobs weren't loud, but they were real. I didn't cry. I just stood there, holding the woman who had once held me, until the weight of all the years finally settled in place. Inside, the house felt older, dimmer. The walls hadn't changed, but the energy had. The living room was still lined with family photos, but now they seemed like remnants, not trophies. My father appeared from the hallway. He had aged more than I expected. His shoulders hunched, his gait slower. He didn't say anything for a beat. Just looked at me like someone who'd spent years preparing for this moment, unsure if it would ever come. "I'm sorry," he said. 3 words, simple, sincere, and more than I ever expected. I nodded. "I know." We sat in the living room, not talking much. The silence between us didn't ache this time. It rested. There were no questions about money, no defenses, no speeches, just shared space, heavy with the understanding that we had all been wrong, in different ways, at different times. Eventually, I asked, "Where's Sabrina?" My mother exhaled slowly. "She's changed, after everything. She struggled for a long time, but she's trying now. She works, lives alone, she asks about you. Says she wants to talk, but she's afraid." Afraid of what? I wondered. That I wouldn't pick up? Or that I would? I didn't answer. Just pulled my phone from my coat pocket. My thumb hovered over the screen a second before I found her contact and pressed call. 1 ring, 2, then a breath, sharp, quiet. "Hello? It's me. We should talk." After years of silence, broken trust, and bitter truths, the ones who once held all the power stood in the ruins of their own deceit. What they called love had always come with conditions, until the conditions no longer worked. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it arrives in a calm voice, a canceled transfer, or a quiet phone call made not from hope, but from closure. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Because in the end, truth doesn't need to win loudly. It only needs to stand.